Bright Lights on the Inspire program. So Ryan, would you like to introduce our guests, please?
Sure. I'll give a little background here today. Today, downtown Milwaukee was the 6th annual convening for personalized learning that's put on by our local CISA. So in the 6th year that the Institute for Personalized Learning has been in operation, and every year they bring in guest speakers, presenters, and special exhibits. So one of our special exhibits was the Inspire team. So they've been burning the candle on both ends, presenting this morning, or yesterday, I'm sorry, yesterday afternoon was the presentation, but had been at the conference sharing out their model for personalized learning. So at this time, I'm excited to be able to introduce our team, and I got another guest too, so I apologize. I don't have the student's name in front of me, but I'm going to turn this over to Crystal Ponte and Greta Voigt. I also know that Becky Newcomer, principal at North, is in the audience there. Oh, there she is. And Jeff Ritagi, who has been a supportive piece here, is also on the agenda tonight and hearing part of it. So take it away.
And as a shout out for Jeffrey, he actually received the Trailblazer Award at the CISA convening along with Krista for his work that he did in flight. And we really had the opportunity to grow and build off of the success that they found at the middle level with flight and with Quest and with STEM. And we've had the opportunity now to expand it up to the high school level, and we're very excited to have the chance to share this experience and this journey with us, or with you guys.
All right, we just want to give you a background. We came before this committee last year as more of a discussion item to tell you that we were thinking about doing some stuff with personalized and project-based learning at the high school level. And we're here to tell you that the program is launched, and we've seen a lot of really good success to start with. So we have our friend Colin here, who's going to take 1 minute to tell you a little bit about his insights as to what Inspire is.
Inspire is different than regular high school because it's personalized learning versus factory type learning. Personalized learning is like you can do stuff that you want to do. You can make your own schedule and make sure that you get it done by yourself, where in regular high school you'd still have to make sure that you got it all done, but you'd be in a factory type setting. You wouldn't be able to work all the time. You'd have an assignment every day. So that's pretty much it.
So mind you, Colin actually was a part of flight, so his experience with traditional school was many years ago now. So really, it's interesting hearing their perceptions of how this is different and having their experiences and their voice shared.
So just to give you a quick overview, we're a small community within North. That we kind of say the 3 Ps of personalized learning, project-based learning, and moving toward more proficiency-based learning. We're not a charter program, and we currently have about 44 students from all different walks of life. And I think if you took a cross-section of our students, you would find that we have students who have very different academic needs. They come with different experiences. I would say right now, about 60% of our kids are graduates of Flight, STEM, and Quest, and then we have other kids who just wanted to join because they were looking for more of a different high school experience. Currently within the program, we focus on 3 primary things. We have larger group advisories that we are able to meet with all the kids and do things like announcements and community activities. Right now we are focusing just on the core areas within Inspire. And then we also focus on interdisciplinary projects. As far as curriculum goes, we'll discuss a little bit more in the future about what we kind of foresee happening. But right now, this would be the program right now. Also, we get this question a lot. Kids will end their freshman year, and right now it's all freshmen, and kids will end their freshman year with the same academic credits and requirements as a typical freshman would at North.
So our Inspire vision is really what's driven our work all the way through. How can we really redesign the high school experience and try to move away from this one-size-fits-all model that we use for delivery in a traditional environment? So we've been trying to find a strategy for moving this into the high school environment in a way that will allow us to continue to personalize our learning experience for our students, providing flexibility in how they learn, in the material that they're delving into, and also giving them a lot of flexibility in their schedule as they develop throughout the week. So really giving students voice and choice in how they act and what kind of things they do within the high school environment. Another piece that we really focus in on is this idea of real-world connections. How can we make their learning relevant by really focusing in on their passions, their excitement, and while also looking at the idea of career skills and developing them into whatever pathway they are looking into for future job opportunities. Also looking at college and career readiness more broadly, and then also looking at this idea of how we can create this collaborative community that focuses on character-based skills.
Hi, I appreciate what you're doing. I just wondered if you could give us a couple specific examples of career skills and then also character-based skills.
Yeah, so the career skills are something that we are looking into developing as we move forward. This year is going to be a little bit more career exploration. And as we develop our interdisciplinary projects that the students are delving into, one of the pieces we really focus in on is this idea of how does this connect to you? So we have a lot of students starting their career exploration just in some of their project work. As we move on and as we go through this year, especially into sophomore, junior, senior year, the vision then is to allow students to explore career pathways of interest and really look at a wide variety of opportunities for this first year. And then going into next year, starting to provide opportunities for job shadowing and really creating courses that are in line with the career interests that they have. Okay. And then as they move into their junior and senior year, really honing in and tailoring their experience through internships, capstone projects, et cetera, that meet their interests for their long-term goals.
Okay, and character-based skills?
Yeah, character-based skills are part of what we try to incorporate into our time during our advisory. We have advisory every single day, and part of that involves developing schedules, and part of it also involves really looking at the kinds of non-cognitive academic skills that we know are important for our students. So we try to incorporate those pieces in, and then we also look at reflecting on those skills as we go along. So this is a piece that we really are trying to roll out as we move forward, and really intentionally looking at topics such as looking at grit and some of the other pieces that are those non-cognitive skills, those community skills that we know are important for our students, that it's much more than just the content piece.
Thank you.
Yep. So one of the things that really helped to kind of help us explain this idea of changing paradigms is this small clip from Sir Ken Robinson. He talked about the idea of what education has looked like in a traditional model and what are some of the opportunities for growth as we kind of reshape and redesign how we do high school. So we want to share that with you. Maybe.
I believe we have a system of education that is modeled on the interests of industrialism and in the image of it. I'll give you a couple of examples. Schools are still pretty much organized on factory lines, ringing bells, separate facilities, specialized into separate subjects. We still educate children by batches. We put them through the system by age group. Why do we do that? Why is there this assumption that the most important thing kids have in common is how old they are? It's like the most important thing about them is their date of manufacture. You know what I mean? Well, I know kids who are much better than other kids at the same age in different disciplines, or at different times of the day, or better in smaller groups than in large groups, or sometimes they want to be on their own. If you're interested in the model of learning, you don't start from this production line mentality. It's essentially about conformity, and increasingly it's about that as you look at the growth of standardized testing and standardized curricula. And it's about standardization. I believe we've got to go in the exact opposite direction. That's what I mean about changing the paradigm.
So that's part of our vision, is how can we change that paradigm? And that's our journey in these first couple months now, is looking into how we can redesign the high school experience to be able to meet the needs and personalize it for students based on their skill levels, their interests, et cetera.
So as we kind of move forward with our work, some of you may have seen the Institute for Personalized Learning at CISA 1 has developed a framework for developing these types of programs, and it's called the honeycomb model. And as we continue through our presentation tonight, you're going to see little pieces of honeycomb in the top right-hand corner, and that will be some of the areas that we've chosen to really align with. We also were able to take a district-wide assessment that both parents, students, administrators, and teachers really looked at our program and district-wide programs to see how exactly we're aligning with it. And so this has been a great tool for us to use as we move forward. So one of the big themes that you're going to see within Inspire is this whole element of voice and choice. We're going to let Haley describe how that comes into play in Inspire.
In Inspire, we have a lot of flexibility on how we choose our schedule. We can do math or English or any of the other seminars at any time that we have an open slot or that we're in Inspire. And the nice part is that when we have free time, we call it flex time, and you're able to work on the work that you just got done with or that you went to a seminar with. We also have a lot of space in Inspire, so that's nice to have. And also the furniture in the classroom is really nice because we have couches and TV chairs and tables and chairs and stuff like that. But it's really open to where you want to sit, and it's really nice. And also, we get to decide how we want to learn and what we want to learn through our seminars. Like if we want to do a project instead of a test, sometimes that's offered. We also have a lot of more opportunities in Inspire than other classes.
So we'll highlight a few of these a little bit later, but things like kids build their schedules every week, not their elective schedule. That's in stone. But what they're doing in Inspire, they do build. In some areas, they can elect how they want to do their own pace, what the focus is for the week, how they'd like the learning mode. We recently had our science teacher who offered the same learning targets, but offered 3 different ways that the student could elect to show mastery of those targets. And then at a certain point in the future, we're going to really start diving into choices, as Greta mentioned, about what they're interested in beyond high school as well.
So we had discussed this, the idea of character development, a little bit of the character pieces, and we've kind of looked at a couple of the target kind of words that we really want to focus in on. What does it mean to be an inspired student? So trying to find a character-based word that starts with the letter N was a real challenge. So NERV was as close as we could get. The idea of really understanding and standing up for what you believe in, and we looked at all of these other pieces too. Our vision then is to really roll out these different components and these different skills as being something that we can measure with a rubric, start to allow students to reflect on their progress and growth, and really highlight that as we move forward as part of our advisory.
So we told people yesterday at the CISA conference, when we were up front, we're a startup. We're like a startup company, and every day is a learning process for us, and we're learning a lot as we go. And as we've done that, we do a lot of reflecting, and we've really highlighted 4 things that we're really proud of in the first 10 weeks, things that we think have a lot of potential at the high school level, and things that kids have really identified as big pluses for our program. We're going to briefly go through each of them, just to give you a little highlight of what each of these components is about in our program.
So the first is this idea of choice schedule. So I'm going to start with what a traditional schedule looks like in the high school environment. As you look at it, it's really convoluted, even in just a normal environment. We have days being dropped, periods being dropped at different times. We have 3 different lunches, so there are 4 A's, 4 B's. Each day looks a little bit different. So this is what a traditional schedule would look like for a normal student. And our vision then is, how do we create the choice and the flexibility in Inspire World with that schedule in mind? So what we've been able to do is look at having students create start with that blank template and really develop their own schedule based on what kinds of interests they have as far as how they want to learn best, what their needs are as a learner. Some of our students really don't like having seminars in the morning. They would prefer to do that in the afternoon when their brain is able to function in that environment more effectively. So some students schedule seminars based on their own needs and interests. Also, from a teacher perspective, really looking at how can we create and use the time we are in Inspire to create experiences that will allow for flexibility and allow students to learn and grow in different ways. So as part of that, we have students actually use something kind of like this. This is a checklist that we have, and this is an example of what the students would get on a Monday to figure out what their schedule will look like for that week. So for example, students will look at their blank template schedule and figure out when they want to schedule in the seminars for the week within each of the different content areas or within the project activity and focus. From there, students are able to use the time that they don't have a scheduled seminar to then flex out and kind of flesh out their flex time. So we call that time the flex time as an opportunity for them to really set their own goals for how they're going to be working on projects, work on some of the different activities for different courses, and really use that time as an opportunity for students to develop the skill of being able to work in an unstructured environment. So that means really looking at how they can manage their time most appropriately.
All right, the second item that we've really been able to start looking at, and we really looked at flight, both Flight Quest and STEM for examples of this, is being able to just have authentic one-on-one conferences, more than just a conversation with a student. And so Greta and I actually have taken our 44 students, we've divided them in half, and so I have half of our roster, Greta has the other half. And we do, every other week, we have a 15-minute conference with the students on big picture reflecting, what are some goals that they have in upcoming projects or activities. We'll look at their grades, where they're at so far, and if we need to maybe have a conversation with the teacher, we serve kind of like as an academic advisor for them. And so the other thing too, is we have what's called a conference log, and I think, so we'll show this to you. So this is something that we fill out on a biweekly basis, and through a lot of help, we were able to build this program within Google Spreadsheets and Google Drive. And so this log is sent out every other week to parents. I just did a couple conferences today. As soon as I hit the send button, this summary of a student's work is then sent to their parents automatically, and we have a running record within our Google Drives. How the student is doing throughout the year. And we're really able to capture a lot of the interests, build profiles of the students, and really see how they're doing throughout our program. And this has been the #1 best piece of data and feedback for us as we move forward and develop the program. All right, and then the third piece that we want to touch on too is there's actually a video, but we're not going to have the video. We're actually going to have Veronica, who's here. She's going to talk about our Inspire Inquiry projects.
So our first interdisciplinary project that we've been working on as in Inspire, it's a huge project that touches base within each core subject that's taught in Inspire. So first we were given a project proposal guide that we had to brainstorm and to think of a topic of choice that we would want to explore about. So this first interdisciplinary project has to do with our identity. So we had to find a topic that interested us and both related to what we want to do in the future, or something that tells something about us. My personal topic was how and why women are represented around the globe or underrepresented, and how young girls can change that in the future. Going on to in the future, we're gonna start. We already started researching and going through this process that'll eventually lead us to the final project that will be a project showcase where we'll choose a medium to display all the work we've put in and all the research that we've learned about. In my project, as I said before, the project is supposed to touch base within each subject that we're taught, all the core subjects such as biology and health. So my project in biology, it ties in with that because it's of the biological determinism and the psychological effect that women have on the underrepresentation. In human geography, it touches base with the matriarchies versus patriarchal societies. In math, I'm going to use statistical evidence and charts that can show the work that I've learned in this subject. In health, I will be learning about self-esteem issues, and in business, the career the career tie that goes into my topic is that I want to go into a STEM field. So part of the project also required us to reach out to a professional expert or a community expert, and I'm going to be keeping in touch with a professor from UW-Madison that teaches women's studies and U.S. Women's movements. So that's what my project is, my inquiry project is.
And thank you so much for sharing. Also, Veronica was chosen to be on CISA's Youth Advisory Council. So she's representing our program in our district as part of that in the world of personalized learning and how our students can help to be on the forefront of that leadership.
And just some of the things that Veronica touched on, things that we've started to draft and revise as we move through the program is a project proposal guide. Think of it, we kind of think of it as every student's doing like a little mini master's thesis. Not really, but it kind of has that flair to it. And then they also are doing things like keeping track of a learning log and their time as well.
And I also want to highlight our Project Showcase Night. The students will be able to go public with their learning as part of a showcase night on November 19th. So really having the opportunity for students to share their work as we move along. So one of the other things that we wanted to celebrate is the idea of math. So many of you know me in a physics world after teaching physics for the entire beginning of my professional career. And in Inspire, I actually teach math. So because I was a physics person, I have a huge passion for finding ways in which math can be connecting with relevant real-world applications. So in the world of Inspire Math, I try to find a way to keep a balance on procedural skills. So can you solve this equation? Can you do that procedure? Along with communicating math and also finding ways to apply and model mathematical concepts. So the procedural piece is actually something that I have students work on more so using online supports programs that meet students' needs based on areas where they might have skill deficits, et cetera. So it's a little bit more of a blended model and a little bit flipped in the sense that students are working on those procedural skills using Blackboard and some other kinds of programs available for them. When we're together, though, I really focus on what I call math talk. How can we speak and communicate about math topics in a meaningful way in smaller groups? So that's what we focus in on during the seminar pieces. And I've been using the kind of a strategy called 3-act math, which is a Dan Meyer. He's a really awesome math guy who has really transformed how math education works. And the idea of a 3-act math problem is really looking at a real-world question and problem and having that be the intro kickoff piece and having students ask questions about the data, develop their own solution by communicating their thoughts on how to address that problem, and then going and sharing that with the rest of the group and before finally figuring out what was the actual answer. So really finding ways to communicate math in a meaningful way. And that's where, once again, the application modeling piece comes into play. Students are developing the concepts of math and also making real-world connections, not only as we're learning the material, but also as they're developing their knowledge in a more summative way. So along with this idea of math being more balanced, I've also been including in the idea of proficiency-based learning. And this is something that I've really been passionate about in my physics world, and then now I'm bringing it into the math world too. The idea is, as we have moved along, a lot of students, and many of my students, especially in algebra, have struggled along the way. They have skill deficits, and we continue to just move them along because they are learning at the same pace as the entire class in a traditional model. So instead, I use what I call a toll booth analogy. The idea that if you're learning this material, you are not moving forward until you can demonstrate proficiency. That means sometimes you take a little bit more time working on a certain concept. Sometimes maybe you have a firm understanding of that topic and you're able to move a little quicker. So really using a way and a method of ensuring that all students are able to learn. And that kind of gets to my core beliefs that are really present in this idea of a proficiency-based model. Learning is the constant. All students can and all students will learn. But the idea is that the time and place is becoming the variable. Like I said, it takes some students maybe a little bit longer to go through some pieces than others, and really finding a way to ensure that all students are given the chance to be successful in that math environment, and giving them the supports and flexibility to do that.
So as we look at some of our first 10 weeks of existence, we're also having a mindset toward the future with both short-term and long-term goals. Our plan is to continue to grow this into a 4-year experience. Our big plan is that by the time students move up to about their junior level or year 3, they're starting to actually select a pathway of interest. Kind of like a major, but not really. But really what they're going to do is elect an area of concentration. And so within that area, we'd like to see them take take certain classes that would help support that, potentially go and do an internship and then do a final capstone project where they would be presenting their work within their field of interest among some peers and among a panel of experts. So if a student, for instance, was really passionate about video game design, can we get them interning? Can we get them maybe designing their own video game and then show off their work by the time they graduate? We want to really start focusing on interdisciplinary curricula. We're always looking at how we can connect our content areas. How can we build in pieces that are more collaborative but also self-guided as well? Looking at always refining the schedule piece. Greta showed you the schedule, and as kids build their schedules every week, really looking at making that a little bit more of an efficient process and also building out community connections as well. So we thank you. We thank you for your support. We've had amazing leadership, starting with Becky at the building level and then moving up with Jody and Ryan and Jeffrey, and I'm sure I forgot somebody, Todd. So, but thank you so much. And then if you have any questions, we'd love to answer them for you.
Sure. I'm sure we do have some questions. Mr. Baumgart.
I don't really have questions, but I want to add a few things to this. I had the opportunity just last week. We had an advisory committee meeting, and the people that are involved in that are wonderful. Jim Rickabaugh was involved with that, and we had, I think, 3 or 4 families there that night, along with some staff. And quite simply, the enthusiasm and the energy level is very, very positive for this group. And they refer to it as getting started, and that's true. In the business world, you have to get started, and you work on things, and you improve things. And in all honesty, they've done an awful lot in the first 10 weeks, roughly, with what they've done. One thing I saw at that meeting, and I wanted to encourage you to not worry about trying to build a schedule. Because they put us through an exercise there, and it is quite complicated, and the kids are doing it, I guess, which is a nice thing. Kids have figured it out, and it's working. In 3 minutes we heard about it here, don't think you're going to build that schedule. But the other thing, I also visited the class maybe a month ago, and I would encourage you, if you have a chance, get hold of Becky to come over and see the class and see how they work with those kids and the enthusiasm of the kids, and what I would say the depth of the things they're thinking about. As Veronica mentioned in her inquiry to herself, and what she's asking herself, and to steer herself appropriately into the future. Those are some of the positives that I think you can see. And Ellen asked about character traits, and I didn't see it up on your list there, but the very fact, responsibility, the kids have taken in 10 weeks, are showing a tremendous amount of responsibility for themselves, and not just the schedule, but what they're doing, defining the questions they're going to try and answer, and seeking out professionals that can help them with resolving those questions. And it's quite simply, it's a very exciting opportunity that we're presenting with a group of kids. We understand it is not for everybody.
Right.
It requires a specific type of character to be able to do this, and but it's working so far.
Thank
so
you.
I wanted to share that.
Thank you. Dr. Langelo.
Thank you. And Bill, thanks, because I always value your time and your willingness to go and be on the ground, and that helps a lot. I thank you so much, and it's very exciting and inspiring. I did have one question, and my question isn't negative, but so I hope you understand that. But you've used the phrase real world. And so I love everything you're doing, except I had a question about one aspect when I think it might have been Chris said that students might not want to do a seminar first thing in the morning, but they might want to put it in the afternoon in terms of how they structure their schedule. And I think that's great, but it seems to me that in the real world, if Todd said, gee, I just don't feel like dealing with that in the morning. I mean, I don't think any of us have had jobs where we've been able to say that. You know, or what if one of our police officers in Waukesha, you know, said, I really don't do car chases in the morning. You know, it seems to me that are we really preparing them for the real world when they get a job, whatever it is,
Somebody tells you.
they're going to have to be ready to do whatever they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it. So, I mean, it sounds great, and I love the idea that maybe they don't want to do this first thing in the morning. On the other hand, how real world is that?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you. I think we look at it through two lenses. In some ways, and we just gave you a snippet of their schedule. In some cases, there are things they absolutely have to go to, and they don't really have a choice. And so a lot of those are advisory. When we also think of real world, we think about what are they going to be doing as a college student.
Yeah.
And very often as a college student, I mean, I remember signing up for classes, and one of the biggest issues, biggest challenges as a college student is you have an offering of 5 different classes. Chemistry 101, and you can take it in 5 different ways. And so what's the thought process? Are you going to be somebody who takes all the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, no Friday? Are you going to do all afternoons because you have to sleep until 10? Our kids aren't sleeping until 10. But so I think we also kind of look at, yes, real world from an employer's point of view, but also the next step at the college level, especially with the advancement of online classes, what is the mode that they would want to choose in that situation? So.
Okay. But you understand my
Yeah, absolutely.
concern. Okay, thank you.
You know, we're so creative in our, instructional delivery process. How does that fit in with what the kids are going to get in college? Are colleges and universities following the same format? Maybe Dr. Lancho can answer that because she teaches at the college level. I'd be interested in knowing, is it like it always was, or are colleges and universities taking advantage of the experience kids come with?
I can't necessarily speak to exactly what's happening at the university level, but I can say that as part of this environment, students are developing really important skills that will set them up for success as they move forward. Time management, being able to work in different cooperative groups, but the other piece too when it comes to learning mode, as part of Inspire, there is a wide variety of ways in which they are learning this material. Some of it might be a little bit more seminar-oriented, which might be more of a traditional lecture, other times working on projects or activities. But we really see one of the strong points is allowing students to develop the skills that will set them up for success, knowing that we don't always know exactly what the job that they might be taking in 20 years, 30 years, what that will be, but how can we develop the skills that will align them and prepare them for being independent learners, being collaborative and community-minded individuals, etc.
Do we find students that didn't really excel to their highest expectation come to Inspire and really, really do much better than they did in the other schedule?
Yeah, I think what you find is you just have students who are willing to learn in a different type of way. Some of them are students who did struggle and they wanted something else. Others were students who really have found a lot of success. I used to teach at STEM, as some of you know, and we have, I think, 9 of the students are they're actually all guys from STEM, and they just love it. I asked a kid today, on a scale of 1 to 10, would you come back next year? He said 10, absolutely. I said, why? He said, because this is how I just really love to learn, and you guys do a good job of setting it up. So I think it just all boils down to in what way does that kid learn best at school? And we found that there's a subset of kids who prefer this way.
Sure, sure.
Just
Baumgart.
wanted to add, because it partially answered your question, when Veronica and 2 or 3 other of the students were at our committee meeting last week talking about this question that they were each developing. And one of the things, and someplace in there came up the fact that they want to grow and all that kind of stuff. And I bluntly asked the question of each of them, do you feel that you are growing academically in this environment? And the answer was unanimously positive. So.
Great. Karen.
Thank you. So thank you, both of you, for your passion and for your dedication in this. Greta, when you said all students can learn and all students will learn, I mean, that just showed your dedication right there, that they will. They are going to when they're under your watch, so thank you. And then I appreciate that you put the vision of a toll booth, but I didn't understand what you meant. Are they all coming at different speeds, but they are going to cross that line? Or because I try to dodge the toll booth, so I'm
I think of it as like an easy pass. Like sometimes when you have, does that work? Yeah. So, like for some students, when it comes to maybe something like being able to graph a function, that's something that it maybe comes really easy for them. So they are able to go and move through that material and that content more quickly. As a result, they move on to the next topic, so get beyond the toll booth in a more a quicker fashion than maybe some of their peers that are struggling with those pieces. So when it comes to the toll booth piece, it's more of a we are working on continuing to learn and grow until we can reach proficiency before we move to the next piece. After being in a traditional environment, the idea of proficiency-based learning was really important for me. And in that traditional world, that can be a challenge. We oftentimes create this one-size-fits-all kind of pacing because of the environments that we have. So in that situation, everyone would have to move through those toll booths at the same rate, when really we know that students come in with a wide variety of different skill sets. So the idea of the toll booth is just this idea that we want to make sure you know what you're doing in that skill piece before we move you on and push you along to the next part. So how can we really start to close the skill deficits that our students have, not only in math, but in other areas too?
Thank you.
So can they come into the Inspire program at any time during their 4 years in high school, or is it preferred that they start at their freshman year?
The way we're set up now is it's preferred freshman year. I know we're going to start having questions. The plan is to open up about 50 slots for incoming freshmen next year, so we'll have our first freshman-sophomore dynamic. At this point, I think we're going to lean on is that we would prefer that they are a freshman when they come in. Would we ever accept sophomores coming in? I think we would. At some point, we would have to consider those probably on a case-by-case basis. But you know, in the future, we're definitely open as we build year two to some of those possibilities.
Okay. Mr. McCaffrey?
As the program moves forward, what does the staffing model look like?
So this is one of the challenges when it comes to high school, and one of the reasons why you see more of these kinds of personalized learning environments at the elementary and middle, and it gets to be more of a challenge at the high school level when it comes to transcripts, when it comes to licensure areas. So as a result, we have a staffing model that we know isn't necessarily ideal, but we want to be able to go and meet the needs of all of the different content areas. So currently, I am the only full-time teacher in Inspire. Chris is in for 50% of his day. We have an English teacher in for 50% of the day. And then we have health and phy-ed, a social studies teacher, and also a science teacher, biology teacher specifically, that are in for only one period. So as of right now, we know that staffing piece makes it a little bit challenging. We have some people that are not in Inspire as often, so we try to flex their schedule as much as possible to give them flexibility in that learning and the times that they are there. Also, we're trying to get creative too with using some videos, online models to help to support that learning, knowing that they're not always in Inspire. As we move forward, we really want to find ways to have individuals that are in Inspire for more of a consistent time. This is a whole different way of teaching and learning. So when you're not in full time and you're not like diving full in, it makes it a little bit more challenging to be able to really live in this world. So that our long-term goal is to try to get more consistency and have more of those content areas represented with a more whole FTE within that time.
As always, very thorough explanation. Thank you.
How do you inform parents or help parents understand this whole new concept?
Well, we really do have two sets of parents, and the first set of parents, we have parents that represent STEM Flight Quest or other types of programs, and so when they came in, they were some of our huge proponents right away, and they're all in. I mean, we have a couple of parents in our advisory committee, and they just wanted to see it continue at the high school level. So we found that with them, they almost kind of push and challenge us because they have experience with it. For the other parents, we've done things. We hosted some parent meetings in the summer. We had some student orientations. We send out newsletters every week, and so we're able to do that. And we are also just had a round of conferences and through also the conferencing logs with students, and so we're able to really I think communicate in a much more efficient and in-depth way than we otherwise would have been. But with some of those parents who may not have been in an environment like this before, it's just a matter of having a conversation. Because we're at a smaller number with 44 students right now, I think we've done a good job as a staff at communicating with them and just kind of explaining what's going on. And so far, the feedback from parents specifically has been really good. So.
I guess I just have one more question. Are you using the grading system that the rest of the high school uses, or do you have a different grading system?
We're using the exact same grading system, the exact same standards, the exact same content. The only thing that's the variable is the method in which we deliver it. So, like for instance, with Veronica, her project is not something you'd see in a traditional classroom. For the most part, her project actually touches on the core standards of biology, human geography, all the freshman classes in multiple ways. And so she, in that one project, probably could get summative grades in 5, 6, 7 areas, just with that work that she's doing. So.
Any more questions? Well, thank you very much, but I have to tell you that one of the most, I think, important characteristics of teachers in a program like yours is enthusiasm. And who couldn't get excited being in your classrooms, really? And that's has a lot to do with the success of your program. The teachers are very important. So
We're very
thank you very
passionate about
much.
this work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.